Okay, so get this. Someone ate 100 avocados in
Wow.
10 days.
100 avocados.
Yeah, 100 avocados.
Mm,
We're diving into their blood work before and after this avocado fest to see what happened.
that's incredible.
Don't worry, we're not saying you should, like, clear out the produce aisle. But this experiment, it's a fascinating look at how even short-term dietary changes can show up in, like, measurable ways.
Yeah, for sure. And what's really interesting is that most people think of avocados as healthy fats, right? But this experiment, it goes way beyond that. It actually reveals how those fats and the unique composition of avocados can influence things like cholesterol particle size and inflammation markers.
Okay, let's be honest. A lot of folks still see avocados and think guac, you know. But this deep dive is all about uncovering the surprising nutritional power of this fruit.
Yeah, and it all starts with challenging that, like common misconception that avocados are bad because they're high in fat. What's important to understand is that the type of fat matters. Avocados are loaded with monounsaturated fats, the same kind found in olive oil, which is often praised for its heart-healthy benefits.
So we're not talking about the kind of fat that clogs your arteries.
Not at all. In fact, the fats in avocados can actually improve your cholesterol profile, as we'll see when we dig into the blood work results.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So if avocados are full of these good fats, where does the whole fiber thing come in?
Well, here's a surprising fact. A serving of avocado has 4 times more fiber than a serving of apple.
Really?
Yeah, we always hear about apples being high in fiber, but avocados really take the cake, or should I say, the guacamole.
Hold on, 4 times. That's wild. And fiber is important for...
Everything. It helps regulate digestion, keeps you feeling full, and even plays a role in blood sugar control. And here's where it gets even more interesting when we look at net carbs, the carbs that actually impact your blood sugar levels. Avocados are surprisingly low in net carbs, way lower than apples despite their creamy texture.
So even though avocados are higher in calories because of the fat, they don't send your blood sugar soaring like some other fruits.
Exactly. And this is a crucial point because high net carb intake, especially from refined sugars, is a major driver of insulin resistance and metabolic issues.
So avocados are like the stealth health ninjas of the fruit world. High in good fats, packed with fiber, low in net carbs. What's not to love?
Well, maybe the price tag, but that's a conversation for another time. For now, let's dive into the blood work and see how all these nutritional benefits actually played out in this experiment.
Okay, before we get to the juicy results, can you clarify something for our listeners? What's the difference between lab range and optimal range when it comes to blood tests? I think that can be confusing for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a great question. Lab ranges are based on population averages. They basically tell you what's statistically normal for a particular blood marker. But here's the catch, that normal can shift over time as the overall health of the population changes.
So what's considered normal might not actually be ideal for optimal health.
Precisely. Optimal ranges, on the other hand, are based on what we know about promoting well-being and preventing disease. They represent those ideal targets we should be aiming for, regardless of what the average person's blood work looks like.
Okay, so it's like aiming for the gold medal, not just making it to the qualifying round.
Exactly. It's about striving for the best possible outcome for your individual health.
Got it. So let's see how our avocado enthusiast blood work stacks up against those optimal ranges. First up, glucose, the basic blood sugar marker.
Their glucose levels remain stable and within the optimal range throughout the entire 10 days of the experiment. However, glucose alone only gives us a snapshot in time. For a more comprehensive picture of blood sugar control, we need to look at hemoglobin A1C.
Right, A1C gives us that long-term view of blood sugar, like an average over several months.
Exactly. It measures how much glucose is bound to red blood cells, providing a more reliable indicator of overall blood sugar trends. And guess what? Even after eating 100 avocados, the experimenters' A1C levels stayed stable and within that ideal optimal range.
So no crazy blood sugar spikes or crashes, even with that much avocado. That's reassuring to hear, especially for people who might worry about the food's higher calorie content.
It really does highlight the blood sugar-friendly nature of avocados. But now for the truly fascinating part. Let's talk about insulin.
Okay, I'm all ears. I know insulin plays a huge role in metabolic health, but it can be a bit of a mystery to a lot of folks. Let's begin with insulin anyway.
Well, insulin's a hormone that helps your cells absorb glucose from the bloodstream. When your blood sugar rises, your pancreas releases insulin to shuttle that glucose into your cells for energy or storage. The problem is when you consistently consume a lot of sugar and refined carbohydrates, your body can become less sensitive to insulin over time. This is called insulin resistance.
So your cells are basically like insulin. Who's that? They don't respond as well anymore.
Exactly. And this forces your pancreas to pump out even more insulin to get the job done. High insulin levels, even if they're still within the lab range, can be an early warning sign of insulin resistance, which is linked to a whole cascade of health problems like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and even some types of cancer.
Okay, that's definitely not something you want to mess with. So what happened to our avocado lovers' insulin levels after their 10-day avocado extravaganza?
Here's where things get really interesting. Their insulin levels actually decreased slightly after the experiment.
Weight decreased. So eating all those avocados might have actually improved their insulin sensitivity.
That's what the data suggests. And it's a pretty remarkable finding considering how quickly those changes occurred. It really underscores the potential of even short-term dietary shifts to impact our metabolic health.
Okay, we've covered blood sugar and insulin. What about inflammation? I know chronic inflammation is a hot topic these days, and for good reason. It's been linked to so many health issues.
Yeah, inflammation is definitely a key player in the development of many chronic diseases, from heart disease and cancer to autoimmune conditions and even Alzheimer's disease. This experiment looked at several markers in the blood work to assess the avocado eater's inflammatory status before and after the 10 days.
I've heard of some of these markers before, like HSCRP. What exactly is that one telling us?
So HSCRP, or high sensitivity C-reactive protein, is a general marker of inflammation in the body. It's one of the first things doctors look at when assessing someone's risk for heart disease. And here's what's really impressive. The avocado eater's HSCRP levels dropped significantly after just 10 days of eating avocados. We're talking a substantial decrease, not just a minor fluctuation.
Wow, that's a pretty powerful indicator that something positive was happening at a cellular level.
Yeah.
But HSCRP isn't the only marker they looked at, right?
You're right. They also measured homocysteine, which is another important marker for heart health. Elevated homocysteine levels are associated with an increased risk of heart disease, stroke, and blood clots.
I vaguely remember hearing about homocysteine, but I'm a little fuzzy on the details. Why is it so important for heart health?
Well, think of homocysteine as a byproduct of protein metabolism. High levels of homocysteine can damage the lining of your blood vessels, making them more susceptible to plaque buildup and inflammation. Interestingly, the avocado eater had their lowest ever recorded homocysteine level after the experiment.
Hold on. Their lowest ever. That's a dramatic change.
It really is. And it suggests that the avocado diet might have had a significant impact on their cardiovascular health, at least in the short term. But the surprises don't stop there. They also looked at ferritin levels.
Ferritin, isn't that the iron storage protein? What does that have to do with inflammation?
Ferritin is fascinating because it plays a dual role in the body. It's primarily known as an indicator of iron stores, but it can also be a marker of inflammation. When inflammation is present, ferritin levels tend to rise.
So high ferritin could mean you have a lot of iron stored up, but it could also be a red flag for inflammation.
Exactly. It's important to look at the bigger picture and consider other factors when interpreting ferritin levels. In this case, the avocado eater had high ferritin levels before the experiment, which could have been due to a number of things, including inflammation. However, after just 10 days of the avocado diet, their ferritin levels decreased noticeably.
So is it possible that the avocados helped reduce inflammation, leading to the lower ferritin levels?
That's certainly a plausible explanation, and it further supports the idea that avocados might possess some potent anti-inflammatory properties.
Okay, so avocados seem to be scoring major points for reducing inflammation. What about the traditional cholesterol and lipid markers? I'm guessing they measured all those too, right?
Of course. They measured the standard lipid panel, which includes total cholesterol, LDL, the bad cholesterol, HDL, the good cholesterol, and triglycerides. The avocado eater's results were generally within the optimal ranges for all of these markers, which is impressive to begin with.
So even before the experiment, they were already in pretty good shape cholesterol-wise.
Exactly. But what's really intriguing is that the experiment went a step further and looked at something called cholesterol particle counts. This is where we get a much more nuanced and insightful picture of heart health.
Cholesterol particle counts. I've never even heard of that.
It's not always included in routine blood work, but it provides incredibly valuable information about the size and number of cholesterol particles in your bloodstream. See, it's not just about the amount of cholesterol you have, it's about the type of cholesterol particles carrying it.
Okay, I'm starting to see where this is going. You're telling me there's more to the story than just those basic cholesterol numbers.
Absolutely. And understanding this deeper level of detail can be a game changer when it comes to assessing your heart disease risk.
All right, I'm hooked. Break it down for us. What are these different types of cholesterol particles, and why do they matter so much?
Well, think of it like this. Imagine you have two buckets of water. One bucket is filled with tennis balls, and the other is filled with golf balls. Both buckets have the same volume of water, but the size and number of balls are very different.
Okay, I'm following so far, but what does this have to do with cholesterol?
Well, those balls represent your cholesterol particles. Smaller, denser LDL particles, like those golf balls, are considered bad cholesterol because they're more likely to get lodged in your blood vessels and contribute to plaque buildup. This increases your risk of heart disease.
So smaller is bad when it comes to LDL particles.
Exactly. Larger, less dense LDL particles, like the tennis balls, are considered good because they're less likely to get stuck and cause problems. And here's the exciting part. The avocado eater saw a significant decrease in their LDL particle count, meaning they had fewer of those bad golf ball-sized particles floating around.
Okay, so that's 1 point for avocados. What about the size of the particles? Did that change too?
You bet. Their average LDL particle size actually increased, meaning they had more of those good tennis ball-sized particles after the experiment.
So even though their standard cholesterol numbers were already pretty good, the avocado diet seemed to make them even better, at least in terms of particle size and count.
That's precisely what we're seeing. And what's even more fascinating is that previous experiments with this same individual showed how quickly these particle numbers can fluctuate in response to dietary changes. When they fasted for a period of time, their small, dense LDL particle count plummeted. But when they followed a typical junk food diet, those numbers shot right back up.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
So even short-term changes in what we eat can have a dramatic impact on these crucial heart health markers. That's a powerful message.
It really is. And it brings us to a bigger picture discussion about the interplay of genetics, lifestyle, and change.
Okay, I'm ready for the big picture. If these changes can happen so quickly, does that mean we're not stuck with the genes we were dealt?
That's an excellent question. This experiment, well, just one example, really highlights the fact that while our genes do provide a blueprint for our health, our lifestyle choices have a powerful influence on how that blueprint is expressed.
So even if you have a family history of heart disease or diabetes, you're not necessarily destined to follow that path.
Not at all. We have a tremendous amount of control over our health through the choices we make every day, from the foods we eat to how much we move our bodies and how we manage stress.
That's incredibly encouraging to hear. It means we're not just victims of our genes. We have the power to shape our own health destinies.
Exactly. And it underscores the idea that it's never too late to make positive changes, even if you're already facing long-term health challenges.
So it's not about being perfect or having good genes. It's about making conscious choices that support our well-being. And sometimes those choices can be surprisingly simple, like adding more avocados to your diet.
That's a great way to put it. It's about those small, consistent actions that over time can have a profound impact on our health. Welcome back to our deep dive, into the surprising world of avocados.
Yeah, it's amazing to think that such a simple fruit can pack, like such a nutritional punch.
Indeed. And, we've only just scratched the surface.
Speaking of scratching the surface, you mentioned earlier that this experiment, it went beyond just looking at those like standard cholesterol markers.
Yeah.
You said they also delved into something called cholesterol particle counts.
That's right. As we discussed in part one, cholesterol particle counts, they provide a much more nuanced picture of heart health than just looking at, total cholesterol, LDL, and HDL levels.
Right. Could you remind our listener why these particle counts are so important? I have a feeling I'm not the only one who's never even heard of this before.
Yeah, it's not always included in routine blood work, so it's understandable that many people are unfamiliar with it. But it's incredibly valuable information, especially when assessing someone's risk for heart disease.
Okay, so remind us why it's not enough to just look at those basic cholesterol numbers.
Okay, so imagine you have two people with the same LDL cholesterol level. One person might have a high number of small, dense LDL particles, while the other person might have a lower number of larger, less dense particles.
So even though their LDL numbers are the same, on paper, their actual risk for heart disease could be very different.
Exactly. The person with those small, dense LDL particles is at a much higher risk because those particles are more likely to get stuck in blood vessels, contribute to plaque buildup, and ultimately lead to heart problems.
So it's not just about the amount of cholesterol, it's about the size and number of particles carrying it.
Precisely. And this is where cholesterol particle counts come in. They allow us to see beyond those basic cholesterol numbers and get a much more accurate assessment of someone's cardiovascular health.
That makes a lot of sense. So what did the avocado eaters' particle counts reveal?
Well, as we touched on in part one, the avocado eaters saw a significant decrease in their LDL particle count and an increase in their average LDL particle size after the experiment.
So basically they ended up with fewer of those bad small particles and more of the good larger particles.
Exactly. And what's even more remarkable is that this shift happened after just 10 days of eating avocados. It really underscores how quickly dietary changes can influence these important heart health markers.
Okay, I'm starting to see why you're so excited about this experiment. But let's shift gears for a moment. I know we talked about how avocados are surprisingly low in net carbs, which makes them a good choice for blood sugar control. But couldn't these positive changes in cholesterol and inflammation simply be due to the healthy fats in avocados rather than the avocados themselves? I mean, olive oil is also high in monounsaturated fats, and we know that's good for the heart.
That's a great question. And it's definitely true that the healthy fats in avocados, they likely played a significant role in the positive changes that we observed. However, I think it's important to consider the whole package when it comes to avocados.
What do you mean by the whole package?
Well, avocados are not just a source of healthy fats. They're also packed with fiber, vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. It's possible that this unique combination of nutrients working together, it contributed to the impressive results we saw in the experiment.
So it's not just about isolating one nutrient, it's about the synergy of all those components working in harmony.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to focus on eating a variety of whole, unprocessed foods rather than relying on supplements or trying to, micromanage individual nutrients.
It's about embracing the complexity of nature and trusting that our bodies know how to utilize those whole food packages for optimal health.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And I think it's a message that often gets lost in our modern obsession with isolating and extracting, individual nutrients.
We forget that food is so much more than just the sum of its parts.
Precisely. And this avocado experiment is a wonderful reminder of that.
Okay, let's go back to the blood work for a minute. We talked about glucose, A1C, insulin, inflammation markers, and cholesterol. Were there any other surprises lurking in the results?
Well, there weren't any major surprises beyond what we've already discussed. But there is one more important point I'd like to highlight. It has to do with the concept of individual variability.
Individual variability, what does that mean?
It means that everyone responds to dietary changes differently. What works wonders for one person might have little or no effect on another person.
So just because this one person experienced all these amazing benefits from eating avocados doesn't necessarily mean everyone will.
Exactly. Our individual genetics, gut microbiome, lifestyle habits, and overall health status all play a role in how our bodies respond to different foods.
That makes sense. So what can people do to personalize their approach to nutrition and figure out what works best for them?
Well, that's where working with a qualified healthcare professional can be incredibly valuable.
Wow.
They can help you interpret your blood work, identify potential areas of concern, and create a personalized nutrition plan that takes into account your individual needs and goals.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's about finding what works best for you.
Exactly. And it's an ongoing process of experimentation and fine-tuning. There's no magic formula. It's about listening to your body, paying attention to how different foods make you feel, and working with a healthcare provider who can guide you along the way.
This deep dive is really making me appreciate the intricate connection between food and our health. It's like our bodies are these incredible, complex ecosystems that are constantly responding to the inputs we give them.
That's a great analogy, and it's so important to remember that even small, seemingly insignificant changes in our diet can have a ripple effect throughout our entire system.
It's like that butterfly effect thing, right?
Yeah.
One tiny flap of a wing can set off a whole chain of events.
Exactly. And in this case, that flap of a wing could be choosing an avocado over a bag of chips or taking a walk instead of scrolling through social media for an hour.
So it's not about being perfect or striving for some unattainable ideal. It's about making conscious choices that nudge us in a healthier direction.
Precisely. And it's about being curious, asking questions, and seeking out information that empowers us to make those choices.
Like listening to the deep dive.
Indeed.
But seriously, this avocado experiment has really got me thinking about all the little things we do each day that add up to our overall health picture.
That's a great way to think about it. It's not always about grand gestures. It's about those consistent daily habits that create a foundation for well-being.
Okay, I'm feeling inspired to make some positive changes, but I know change can be hard, especially when it comes to deeply ingrained habits. What advice would you give to someone who's feeling overwhelmed or unsure where to start?
That's a great question. I think the most important thing is to be kind to yourself and to start small. Don't try to, overhaul your entire life overnight.
So baby steps are the key.
Exactly. Choose one or two small, manageable changes that you can realistically stick with. Maybe it's adding an avocado to your breakfast or swapping out your afternoon soda for a glass of water.
And don't beat yourself up if you slip up every now and then.
Yeah.
We're all human.
Absolutely. Progress, not perfection, is the goal. And remember to celebrate your successes along the way, no matter how small they may seem.
Those little victories can really add up and keep you motivated.
They absolutely can. And as you start to experience the positive benefits of those small changes, you'll likely find yourself feeling more energized and empowered to make even more positive choices.
It's like a positive feedback loop.
Exactly. And that's how lasting change happens.
Okay, I think we've covered just about everything there is to know about avocados.
Well, almost everything. There's always more to learn, but I think we've given our listener a pretty comprehensive deep dive into the surprising health benefits of this incredible fruit.
Before we wrap up this part, I have one last question for you. Do you have any final words of wisdom for our listener as they embark on their own avocado adventures?
I would say embrace the power of food as medicine. Remember that every bite you take is an opportunity to nourish your body and support your overall well-being.
And don't underestimate the power of even small changes.
Exactly. Those small changes, when done consistently over time, can have a profound impact on your health and vitality.
Welcome back to the deep dive.
Yeah.
We've been exploring the incredible world of avocados, from their surprising nutritional profile to their potential impact on heart health, blood sugar inflammation.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. And, even I've learned a few new things along the way.
I know, right? I'm looking at avocados in a whole new light now.
I think that's the beauty of these deep dives, They challenge our assumptions and open our minds to, new possibilities.
Speaking of possibilities, let's talk about how we can actually put all this, newfound avocado wisdom into practice. I'm guessing our listener might be wondering how to incorporate more of this creamy goodness into their daily routine.
Absolutely. And the good news is that avocados are incredibly versatile. They can be enjoyed in countless ways, from the classic guacamole to, more creative culinary adventures.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. How do you choose a ripe avocado? I've definitely had my share of rock-hard avocados that were impossible to work with.
Oh, yeah, I feel your pain.
Yeah.
There's nothing more disappointing than slicing into an avocado only to find it's, not ready to eat. The key is to look for avocados that are slightly soft to the touch, but not mushy. They should have a dark green to almost black color, depending on the variety.
So a little bit of give when you press gently, but not too much?
Exactly. And if you're buying avocados in advance, you can always choose ones that are still a bit firm and let them ripen at room temperature for a few days.
Good tip. Okay, so now that we've got our perfectly ripe avocados, what are some of your favorite ways to enjoy them?
Well, guacamole is always a crowd pleaser, but I also love adding avocado slices to salads, sandwiches, wraps.
Yeah, they add such a creamy richness and a satisfying texture.
They do. And don't forget about avocado toast. It's become a breakfast staple for a reason.
It's simple, delicious, and a great way to start the day with a dose of healthy fats and fiber.
Absolutely. And if you're feeling more adventurous, you can blend avocados into smoothies, use them to make creamy sauces and dressings, or even bake with them.
Bake with them? I've never heard of that.
Oh, yes. Avocado brownies are a thing.
Okay.
And they're surprisingly decadent.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. I think I have to try that.
I highly recommend it. You can find plenty of recipes online, and if you're looking for a quick and easy snack, mashed avocado with a sprinkle of salt and pepper is always a winner.
Yeah, that's my go-to when I'm short on time.
It's a classic for a reason. Simple, nutritious, and satisfying.
So no matter what your culinary skill level or, taste preferences, there's an avocado recipe out there for you.
Exactly. And as we've learned throughout this deep dive, incorporating more avocados into your diet could have a surprising positive impact on your health.
It's like a delicious win-win.
Indeed. So, I encourage our listener to embrace the versatility of avocados and experiment with different ways to enjoy them.
And remember, even small changes, like adding half an avocado to your lunch a few times a week, can make a difference.
Absolutely. It's all about those incremental steps that, over time, can lead to remarkable transformations.
Well, I think it's safe to say that we've thoroughly unpacked the avocado mystery.
Yeah, I agree. We've explored its nutritional superpowers, its potential health benefits, and even its fascinating history.
And we've learned that sometimes the most unexpected foods can hold the keys to a healthier and more vibrant life.
That's a beautiful takeaway. And it speaks to the power of curiosity and the importance of always being open to learning new things.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to thank you for joining us on this avocado adventure.
It's been a pleasure. And I hope our listener walks away feeling inspired and empowered to make even small changes that can have a big impact on their well-being.
And if you're ever feeling lost in a sea of nutrition information, just remember the humble avocado.
Yeah. It's a delicious reminder that nature provides everything we need to thrive.
That's all for this deep dive on avocados. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.
Yeah, see you next time.